Wow, last minute, Gary Hendershot.
Gee, Charlie, you're awful loud.
Oh, I'm sorry, buddy. I'm very sorry.
We always run these things right down to the wire. Well, good evening. Let me get my preliminaries out of the way here.
I apologize.
I'm going to put you on mute, man. Yeah, you're an annoying guest.
Let's do it. Mute me up.
Yeah, all righty. Let's mute that guy. Who is that in the background making all that noise? Well, good evening, everybody. My name is Gary Hendershot, and you're watching the Alternative Energy Hour on Wide Awake News. It's Monday, May 13th, 2013, and I want to wish a belated Happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. I know my wife had mother-in-law duty this weekend, so this was her Mother's Day, and I'll have to do something to take care of her later in the week to make sure she gets some kind of a celebration for herself. Tonight, as often happens in live broadcasting, I had a guest all lined up. Was going to come in and give a little talk tonight, and at the last minute, they begged off on me. So I do not have a guest for tonight's presentation. I have informed my regulars in the audience that I will take phone calls during tonight's presentation, and I'm going to put that banner up here. The phone number, if you would like to call in, if you've got something that you'd like to talk about, hopefully related to alternative energy, because that's kind of what this segment's all about. That number is 877-342-6673. Now, in the background, you probably heard all that noise at the last moment there. That was Charlie McGrath, the host of Wide Awake News, trying to get his video set up, but right now it's looking like Charlie's not pedaling quite fast enough to get his video to run. But I'm going to go ahead and unmute him and bring him in here anyway. Charlie.
Oh my God! I felt like I was being tortured. I've never been muted. Yeah, that's horrible.
Muted on your own show. Now that's something, ain't it?
Well, it's your show. It's your hour, and you just proved it. You proved that I am completely powerless. Do you do not have a video feed for me, right?
No. Okay. But
I
do have that shockingly handsome image of you posted up right now, so all the ladies can drool over you. One of the things I've noticed, Charlie, is that my videos on YouTube and so forth. YouTube is real good about giving you all these analytics. They give you all these statistics and everything. And I look at my videos, and I get a female audience amounting to about 5.5–6%. Now, I understand that your videos pull in almost a 30% female audience, and I want to know what your secret is. How do you get the ladies excited about your videos?
Well, it's pretty it's pretty self-explanatory, I think, Gary. I mean,
I know you're young and handsome, and I'm old and been married for 40 years.
There's that, number one, and number two, I rock the Armageddon do. And guys are intimidated by it, and the ladies they like the Armageddon do. So I would suggest, Gary, that you grab a pair of clippers and a number one guard, and you make the move, you make the jump. You couldn't do that. You're
saying instead of my 1960s ponytail, I got to do the Armageddon do.
You got to do the Armageddon down to the nub. But here's the deal, folks. If I could grow hair like Gary Hendershot, who I know how old he is, and I'm not going to say because but he's older than me, and he's got a wafting southerly gentleman's head of hair. And
let's put it this way: I'm giving dirt a run for its money.
Here's the deal, Gary. I'm happy to join you. I haven't been on your program, on your hour, for a long time, and I'm happy that I could fill in and get back in time to almost make the beginning of the program. And I want to talk a little bit, if you don't mind. I know it's Alternative Energy Hour, but I want to talk about the infatuation, it's safe to say it might not even be necessarily a good infatuation. I can't stop watching. Listen to me. I can't stop watching What Pissed Off Smart Scarecrow. I can't stop watching, and I think it's your hypnotic in and out of the camera. I'm mesmerized. And here's the deal. I'm a very, very early riser, and what I mean, like 5 o'clock in the morning is late, and so I like to get a lot of emails answered, and sometimes even make videos and that kind of thing at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, and then go in the office about 6. But I found myself the last couple of presentations you put out you post them up on my YouTube channel, Krabby Dog Tricks. For those of you who don't watch them, watch them. And here's the deal: the Smart Scarecrow Alternative Energy Hour is what, Gary? 42 minutes of talk time and then some commercial breaks. For those of you who haven't seen What Pissed Off Gary this week, Gary, I don't give you enough credit. Those are basically hilarious in a very dry, southerly kind of way, and they're informative, and I really enjoy them. And I've been noticing also that the views on those, you're getting over up to 1,000 views on every one, and they're 20 minutes long. That's not a short little clip. So keep doing those. They crack me up. I think that's your forte.
Well, to my audience, I get mixed reviews on that stuff because some of them look at that stuff and what the hell does this have to do with alternative energy? I came to hear about flying cars and robot slaves, and you're talking all this politics and economics and all this other nonsense. What the heck is that? Well, I just I defray those types of barbs by saying, hey, it's my show. If you got something to say, start your own YouTube channel, publish your own stuff. I'm using my editorial license to say, okay, this little 20-minute segment of the show is mine, and I'm going to say what I want to say. Try and stop me.
Well, I think
you don't have to listen, but that's my 20 minutes.
I think they're becoming a regular part of a lot of people's routine, and you're just laid back. You're a laid back guy, and you drawl, and I don't know if you hear that drawl. It's the camera presence, and I don't know if you're doing it on purpose. I don't know if it's just you're rocking in your chair like you yell at me for doing all the time, but you're in and out from the camera, and it absolutely it's like something you watch, and you're saying to yourself, I can't stop looking at this, like a car wreck, and I don't mean that in a negative way. Because the information is good. I found the one that you did, the one that I watched this morning at 4 a.m. about the Liberator pistol, and you did the story about the Liberator pistol. Oh, I think that was it, or maybe Liberty pistol or whatever. And then the 3D printer gun and the nexus between them. That was fascinating stuff. That's very very informative and great commentary.
Oh, I appreciate the kind comments. I will say this: those little rants of mine, my little tirades, do get a lot better play for your audience than they do for my own. I mean, on my own YouTube channel, I might get a couple of hundred views, but
right.
Your audience seems to like that stuff. So as long as they like it, hey, I'll keep making them as long as there's an audience for it.
Here's the deal. You do this a lot. You do it every Thursday for several hours, and I do this a lot. And it's, sometimes the power pack information in 2 minutes is outstanding, and sometimes in 20 minutes, and sometimes it's the shorter informational that has a bigger impact. We're going to be back with Gary Hendershot on the Smart Scarecrow Alternative Energy Hour on Wide Awake News Radio. My name is Charlie McGrath. It is the 13th day of May, Monday. Join us in just a few minutes. Hang tight.
We'll be right back, folks. And we're back from that first blatantly commercial announcement. Do hope you folks show those advertisers a little love. They're what makes the world go round. But tonight I wanted to talk a little bit about something that's been promised to us for a long time. Back during the 70s, during the Carter administration, we had this thing called the Arab oil embargo, and I'm not sure how many out there in the audience are even old enough to remember that, but I remember having to stand in line for hours on even days or odd days, depending on what your license plate was, to buy 5 gallons of overpriced gasoline. And one of the promises they made us back in those days is that the hydrogen economy is right around the corner, and we're going to get off of this nasty stuff from the Middle East. We're going to get off of oil. We're going to get on a hydrogen economy. And I got to think about it. I said, that's pretty darn good idea. As a matter of fact, for a long time, I did my own experiments on, what the most effective, most efficient way might be to create hydrogen and deploy hydrogen as a fuel. And I had some interesting experiments along those lines. Well, all right, now let's fast forward to just, about a year and a half ago. Remember that thing, that Fukushima thing over in Japan? Remember when that thing blew its top? Remember seeing that video out there about this Fukushima thing blowing its top?
I vaguely remember.
Well, a lot of people thought that was the nuke plant going critical, that it was, it was like a nuclear explosion. No, that was hydrogen in that containment building that eventually ignited and blew the lid right off the top of the Fukushima plant. That was a hydrogen explosion that people witnessed. And one of the things that has been proposed for many, many years is that as a side issue, as a side benefit from the 435 nuclear power plants sprinkled all across the globe. I think the United States has, roughly 130-ish of them. As a side product, these nuclear plants could easily produce hydrogen that could, if we had the right infrastructure in place, be used to power most everything we got. Automobiles, trucks, trains, whatever, airplanes even. Hydrogen could indeed replace gasoline as a fuel. The problem is the nuclear plants that we have in place today were primarily designed and put into production to produce fuel for nuclear bombs. These nuclear power plants have there's not ever been one nuclear power plant that ever turned a profit, and the only reason they're still operational is because of subsidies from you. You pick up the tab for what the power companies can't possibly charge for the power generated by nuclear. And it's hidden in defense contracts for the fuel for their nuclear weapons that come out of these nuclear power plants. It would be so easy to design these plants so they could indeed produce hydrogen in their off hours. During the day, when everybody needs a lot of electricity, they generate electricity. At night, when people don't need a lot of electricity, they make hydrogen. The hydrogen is shipped to wherever it needs to be distributed, and you burn it in your automobile, your airplane, or whatever. It's a scenario that would work, but there's no getting there tomorrow because there's a significant infrastructure in place. The infrastructure we have in place that distributes gasoline, for example, is 100 years old. It's decrepit. It's falling apart. It needs to be totally refurbished. Now, do we spend the money to refurbish that to distribute gasoline? Or do we spend the money to refurbish it to distribute hydrogen and skip maybe to the next epoch of human development? What would you say to that, Charlie?
Well, let me ask you. You're the expert here. I mean, I agree with what you said. The nuclear industry is not. It's not a moneymaker. It's not even a self-sustaining venture. It's a money loser as far as financially, obviously, but is environmentally and for public safety. one accident is one far too many. But isn't hydrogen? Isn't the promise of or the theory rather of hydrogen viable? It's just not. We're not pursuing that. We're keeping status quo because it's obviously a far more profitable venture for the corporate special interest to keep in place than trying to switch to something, be it electric or hydrogen or combo of both or whatever.
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that they look at the infrastructure in refining oil into gasoline and diesel fuel and home heating oil and so on. They consider that sunk money. Okay, they already spent the money on that. Now, as long as we can keep getting saleable product out of that infrastructure,
Yeah.
And I think it's going to take a couple more Macondo blowouts, or what's commonly referred to as the BP oil spill, or a couple of more pipeline ruptures like what they've had in Arkansas and Texas, and maybe a couple more, maybe a refinery blowing up, because we haven't built a new oil refinery since the 1970s.
Yeah.
Our refineries are antiquated. The pipelines that run the fuel. Oh.
Yeah, I got questions.
That's a short segment, man.
It is. You were all over
Hey,
it.
folks, we'll be back right after these commercial announcements. Please do stand by. And we're back from our second break of the evening. I'm Gary Hendershot, joined tonight by Charlie McGrath. Charlie, I tell you, I do appreciate you coming in here and bailing me out.
The level of cesium in the thorium is
with the cesium and thorium. Thorium reactors are a very practical alternative to this nonsense we've got right now. You want to talk about thorium reactors?
You just heard everything I know about it. I heard you talk about it before, and that's it.
Cesium's not much good in a reactor.
Well, I want to talk about antiquated system. And even if all these guys you have on the program and gals that have fantastic ideas, and I love hearing them, but what's the practicality? I envision a scenario where we do this Mad Max thing, or some quasi Mad Max thing, regional breakdown, and I see self-reliance in community. Matter of fact, I'll be talking more about that in the near future, because I'm starting this networking drive in my area to try to facilitate that. Anyway, that's off topic. I envision small communities trying to come together and solve their energy needs. And I'm talking heating and cooking and that kind of thing, but in a way that's local. So maybe in Virginia, you have a lot of rivers and it's a moist area. So maybe hydroelectric. Maybe here in Montana, where we have a lot of there's a lot of resources that can be burned or pellets, put into pellets to produce energy that way, or coal. But it seems that our current infrastructure is a few systems, all of which are dominated by steam, right, in one form or another.
We are still indeed in the steam age. Now, you may generate that steam by nuclear fission, but it's still steam.
Yeah, I don't care if it's a campfire or if it's a nuclear power plant. It's steam, right?
Yep, and believe me, I love the really wacky, exotic potential alternatives. I'm one of my catch lines is I'm still waiting for the flying car and robot slave that I was promised back in the 60s. Remember that Jetsons cartoon? Man, I really got sold on that. I want a flying car that folds up into a briefcase when I've got to where I want to go. Where is it? I've been waiting 40 years for the damn thing. Well, I love to entertain the possibility that some really bright young fella working in his garage or working in his basement or whatever is going to come up with a really great widget that's going to be the next great thing out there. But I've also got to be realistic. And if you're prepping for a doomsday scenario, if you're one of these doomsday prepper types, and you really want to get yourself in a position to produce your own power, and you want to do it with reliable technology that's available today, you got two choices. You go wind or you go electric. You either put up a couple of windmills or you put up a couple of solar panels, and you dramatically reduce your expectation. There's not going to be any electric range. There's not going to be any air conditioning.
Right.
There's not going to be baseboard electric heat. Okay, these things just...
And there's going to be a lot of dead people.
Probably. But,
probably.
You will be able to run your ham radio. You'll be able to run a few lights. You'll be able to, charge up your iPad, assuming you can get a Wi-Fi connection. You'll be able to charge your cell phone, assuming the cell phone towers are still working. I mean, you will be able to have a modicum of comforts based on very low usage of electricity. And for people who live in an area like yours, where you have a lot of biomass that you might be able to burn, the other technology that's very effective, and this would work for a lot of people, particularly people in the southeastern states where they have a lot of forestry, is wood gasification. Wood gasification is a very practical technology. It works extremely well. Obviously, it doesn't work for somebody who lives in an arid environment where there's nothing to burn. But, for somebody in South Carolina or somebody in Kentucky or perhaps in your area, wood gasification is something that should be investigated.
Well, the biomass, and here there's a lot of, I mentioned before, like in the winter, pellet stoves. A lot of people are they're taking these beetle kill trees that we have throughout the West, and there's uncountable acres of dead forest that's standing there. And when those trees are infested with that pine bark beetle, bark pine beetle, I think I'm saying it backwards, it kills the tree. And if they harvest it right away, they can get some usable structural integrity out of the lumber. However, if they don't, and in most cases, government being what it is, it's these stands turn red and then they slough their needles, and it's pretty much at that point that they're nothing much better than firewood. And so we have thousands and millions of acres of these trees, and a lot of it are turned into pellets. And even in this most decayed state of a living or once living tree, it still has values in BTUs. It still can be turned into an energy source, and it's actually pretty clean energy, Gary.
Well, the nice thing about wood gasification, now, of course, if you've got a wood burning stove where you make the pellets or whatever, I mean that's a way to derive heat. That's fine. Obviously, in some parts of the country, that's a critical requirement.
Well, you can make heat, you can make steam, you can make electricity. I mean,
the wood gasifiers actually generate a burnable gas from the wood.
Right.
So, and you can quite
superheat the wood, correct? You superheat the wood.
Yeah, it's almost like you're turning it into charcoal. You're like turning it into charcoal, and the off-gassing from that process can be harnessed to run a conventional gasoline-type engine. So if you have a gasoline-type generator, you could run your gasoline generator.
I got a question. I understand the principle of wood gasification. You superheat the wood, it off gases a combustible gas. Does it then like propane where you can condense it into a liquid and then
well that requires compressors and all kinds of other nonsense. So there you're expending energy. If
you run it into a combustion engine, and I'm walking all over you because it's fun.
That's okay. I'm used to it.
If you run it into a combustion engine, then you're running it in the gas in a true gas state.
Yes.
It's not going in a carburetor.
You draw it right into the carburetor, mix it with air. You would
and light it up. Okay.
Yeah, and the modifications required to an engine that you intend to run off of wood gas are really pretty modest. I mean, you could go to the additional expense of using one of these fancy propane carburetor type arrangements if you really wanted to. But I've seen guys hook them up directly to the standard gasoline carburetor, and all you're really using there is you're using that butterfly valve to control the mix of air and wood gas.
Right.
So, it depends on how far you want to get into it. If you want to do it right, you go the propane type carburetor. You treat it like you would compressed natural gas or propane. But even that's not necessary if you're trying to do it on the cheap and just make it work.
Well, I think it's a good skill to know. And
then, of course, there's always my favorite, the distilling of spirits. Because that way you've got two products. You got something to run your pickup truck on, and in the evening when there's nothing else going on, you power yourself on.
I think you run your favorite experiments once a week, right before What Pissed Off Gary Hendershot segment.
I take a lot of heat over that because over that presentation because everybody's used to your pace. And of course, I speak slow, and it's done on purpose.
You know what? I want the folks in chat. You're hearing me right now. I know we're coming to break. I want to know how many people have watched the What Pissed Off Smart Scarecrow this week, and get your opinions. Put it into chat. WideAwakeNews.com. Click on the Wide Awake Radio microphone. You'll be in chat. We're be back.
We're cutting the commercial short. Here we go.
Here we go.
And that was the last break of the evening for the Alternative Energy Hour. But I think, seeing as how we've saved the whales and we've fed all the hungry with all of our alternative energy spouting of high tech. At this point, Charlie, we'll just open the floor. What did you want to get off your chest tonight?
Okay, here's what I want to get off my chest, Smart Scarecrow. You were talking about and listen, I've never been accused of being a radical environmentalist, but I live in one of the most beautiful places that I've ever been, period, around this planet. I live in the mountainous Rocky Mountain west of Montana, and it's gorgeous here. So I have an affinity to nature because it's a big part of my life. But I recently, and this isn't news really, this is something that people have known about for a long time, but I was reintroduced to it, which is one of the effects of the petrol industry, the oil-based economy. We talked to population. I said a lot of people would die if we went back 150 years. If we went back to before we were an oil-based economy, we wouldn't have 8 billion people on the planet. We'd have, probably half at best, probably not even that. So we see a direct increase in this use of petroleum-based energy with the quantity of life, and arguably, people are going to get mad, arguably the longevity of life, not necessarily the health factor, but Gary and I were talking during the break that about my asthma / sinus condition. Those of you who've been listening to the program for some time understand that it's been going on for a long time, almost 3 years on rinse, over 2 years of in and out suffering. Well, here's the fact: 150 years ago, I would either not have it altogether because I wouldn't have pollutants that brought me to that position in the first place, if it is not a genetic thing. And here's another hard fact: billions of dollars spent on this research alone every year. Doctors don't know. The best in the world don't know if it's, they don't know what asthma is. They don't know what causes it. They know there's an increase on it. They know that what happens when it occurs, but they just don't know. And if you have a severe sinus condition, you might have asthma symptoms. It might be caused by your asthma because your immune system gets freaked out and it starts attacking things that it can cure. Because if you have one or the other, your immune system attacks it. It can't get rid of it. It kind of trips it up and it starts attacking the other parts of your body. My point is this: 150 years ago, I would either not have it or I would be 43 years old and close to death. That is a fact. I think that sometimes in this community, especially the alternative energy community, it'd be a panacea without any modern form of energy production. And the truth of the matter is, we'd have a lot less population on this planet. People would not live as long, and I know people are getting mad right now. There's obvious benefits to the system, to the petroleum-based world. There's obvious benefits that even if you're extremely anti-oil, which I'm against corrupt oil, you have to admit that the conveniences that you're enjoying this program on right now, there is oil within an inch of wherever you're listening in one form or another. That is something that isn't truly addressed by the alt crowd. You change that, you change the paradigm completely, it is going to be something dramatic and drastic. The other side of it is, when I was saying I was reintroduced to the other day, is looking at this multi-Texas-sized debris field in the Pacific that is derived completely 100% from petroleum, where either the pellets themselves in the raw form are these things that won't break down, and they end up in our oceans, and it's a horrific thing. If you haven't seen that,
there's an island of water bottles out there somewhere.
Yeah, it's water bottles.
It's ridiculous. Or trash.
Yeah, it's water bottles. It's actually, for those curious, in the production of polypropylene or polyethylene, when everything you see that's plastic, everything that you see that isn't a piece of wood or metal, right? It is derived from a little tiny pellet that sometimes it's virgin, sometimes it's recycled. Whatever it is, it doesn't break down, and that little pellet will float around in the ocean. If it falls off of a train car, or if it's turned into a product like some sort of plastic bag, it will stay in that form for I don't want to say forever, because nothing's forever, but forever.
Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of years.
Yeah.
Now, on that note, there is a guy in Japan who has a process where he can take all these, plastic water bottles and all this stuff that's floating around out in the ocean right now, and convert it back into petroleum. He's developed a process. He sells equipment. He sells it, but unfortunately, it's not yet economically feasible to do it. Like so many things out there, so many great ideas. I mean, I hear all the time about how so many of our plastics could come from hemp. Sure, no question about it.
And here's the rub.
The infrastructure is not there. That's even though, yes, it's technically possible, the infrastructure to exploit that technology does not currently exist. What we've got is a bought and paid for infrastructure designed to use petroleum.
And I'm going to draw an analogy here, dominating your program, that is not only apropos for the Alternative Energy Hour, but it is our society in general. The only way, it seems to me, be it economically, be it politically, be it socially, be it environmentally, that anything can have true, substantial, long-term change is on the heels of collapse. That is it. And it's what we talk about all the time on the financial side of things, that, a lot of people are conditioned, kind of like a shooting in Louisiana that's meaningless. By the way, thank you for recording that RT interview last night, Gary.
No problem.
A shooting in Louisiana that's meaningless, yet it's going to be used to influence opinion. Just as we
shouldn't be callous about it. I mean, obviously, the people who were shot, this was more than just a minor inconvenience. But in the big scheme of things, there were probably 50 of those petty gangland type shootings across the country. And why they focused on this one, I guess because it happened on Mother's Day. I don't know.
Is it a parade? Look,
is it a terrorist attack? No, it's local gangs shooting it out. I mean, this has been going on forever.
You saw the interview, right? And you were recording it, and I was so mad by the time that Matt went to me. I was trying to say somewhat professional. And I tried. I thought about editing out. I'm glad you didn't.
I thought seriously about editing out the lady who did the first thing. Oh, was this a terrorist attack? Oh, and I thought, no, people need to see the contrast. Well, and you seemed quite rational compared.
Oh, I they were like you. They had me muted. They mute you before they call your name out.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was making noises like, come on. and I was hoping had a chance to share some statistics when I got on air, and I was able to a few. But yeah, it's a non-event. I apologize if you're in Louisiana and this offends you, but listen, Gary's right. These things we have a nation of 400 million guns, right? With 400 million guns, 310 million people, and it's what I said on the interview. I mean it right now. Why aren't we celebrating the fact? Why isn't it all over the news that 400 million guns and there was no mass shooting?
Yeah,
because it's not part of the script. It's take reality and flip it. That's what it's all about. 13,000 deaths by gun violence last year. I'm sorry, in a nation of 310 million, that is not a statistic that should be keeping our kids afraid of going down to the mall because of gun violence.
No, it certainly should. And and I hate to say it, but it seems that some in this nation, so far, it appears they've been held at bay, but some would like it to be a nation of 310 million potential victims.
Yeah.
Where at least right now there's there appears to be a solid 20-30 million in this nation who've made a conscious decision that they will not be a victim.
That's right. And speaking of not being a victim, I'm going to do a poll here. And guys, you can coming up in the next hour, we got Bob Fletcher, exciting guy. I love listening to Bob talk. But I'll carry the question over on ammunition. Obviously, we hear these stories and done videos, I've done commentary on them on this tight supply and the government hoarding. But Gary, I went this weekend looking. My favorite caliber in the world is 22 caliber long rifle. It's universal. It's everywhere, and I can put it in a pistol or a rifle, and anything I need to do, I can do with it. So I love it, and I can fit 100 rounds in my pocket and not even know it's there. But I went through Bozeman, Montana yesterday. I went to every retailer, and I found one box of I think it was a 20 count of 22 short. I could not find a 22 long rifle round anywhere. Do you have any down there, buddy? Go pick me up some.
We'll talk off air. How many cases did you need?
Trust me, I have plenty. I just like to if I'm in a place and they got a brick on sale for $12, I'll pick up.
Oh yeah,
yeah, yeah.
I'm sitting here looking at the shelf. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bricks of 5,000. That's what's readily visible on the shelf.
I know, and I'll get an email or two tonight because people think it's just a wimp's gun, and you know what, guys, it's not.
Hey, everybody's got to have a couple 22s. I mean,
right.
It may not be the gun you go for in a bad situation, but it's the one you always grab when you just want to go out and punch some holes in some paper. It's just flat fun to shoot, and so cheap you don't have to think about it. Well, at least it used to be cheap. I guess with the shortage of the 22 long rifles, it's not going to be so cheap anymore.
My sister lives here locally, helps me with my son when I have to travel, and I gave her a little 22 pistol yesterday.
That hour went real fast.
Of course it did, Gary. I'm talking the whole time.
Yeah, well, I got, Chatty Charlie with me tonight. In any case, to the audience, that's going to wrap the Alternative Energy Hour for May 13th, 2013. I know we deviated a little bit from the alternative energy message, but hey, like I say, it's my hour to do. Tonight you heard what I wanted to talk about. And do stay tuned for this fellow Charlie McGrath, who is babbling in the background there. He gets the next hour of the show in just a minute after these announcements. Please stand by.
Bob Fletcher is our guest. We'll be back in a few.